Hello, and welcome to rain meditation. Many people don't know what rain is, so I'll briefly describe before we get into it. RAIN is an acronym that stands for recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture. Nurture has many different potential connotations and ways of practicing, so we'll go through that a little bit. RAIN is both a meditation and a process that you can use in the moment of feeling frustrated or overwhelmed. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. So if you'd like to practice some RAIN, take a seat or lay down or stand, whatever works for you. There isn't any one right way to hold your body in presence. Ponder the possibility of what's the right way for you. And then engage your body in that way whenever you're going to get ready to do meditation. That helps us sort of program ourselves when we take a certain position that we automatically will start to calm, which can be very helpful. So bring yourself into whatever space, whatever posture works for you. You can close your eyes if you'd like, or keep them in a soft gaze, which is where you look at something, but you're not really looking. You're kind of looking through. Let yourself be aware of the points of contact that you have in this moment. That might be your feet on the floor. That may be your back against the chair, your head on the pillows if you're laying down. But bring awareness and a sense of presence through that sense doorway where your body is touching the chair, for instance. Brings up sensations, tactile sensations. Those are just as powerful as the breath and being able to keep presence. Maybe take a deep breath. Breathing in, and as you exhale, letting yourself sink a little further into wherever you are, wherever you're supported. Noticing your body becoming heavier and spreading out a little more each time. Breathing out, letting go of tensions, letting your shoulders drop further. Feeling the weight of your body, the presence of your body in the chair. Just rest here for a moment. And I invite you to think about a time when you're aware of feeling stuck. Or maybe you were overwhelmed by thoughts. Or maybe it's a situation that you recall that you didn't like quite how you handled yourself or how things went. Don't pick something too difficult or deep. You don't want to stir up too much in this practice. And as you bring up the situation, let it settle into you to the best of your ability. Bring forward what it was like to experience that. Maybe you have awareness of sensory things that happened, like maybe your heart was racing, or maybe you had that feeling in your stomach that tells you you're uncomfortable. Bring those forward to the best of your ability in this moment. Let's start to shift perspective here for a moment. So I asked you to bring forward these experiences, these sense awarenesses. Now, if you can, take a step back from those now that they're here, allowing yourself to be an observer to the situation or to what the body's response is. Trying not to get caught in a feeling. What do you recognize in this moment? Maybe you recognize a certain kind of feeling or feelings. Maybe you recognize tension in the body. What were you thinking? And why were you thinking that way in this situation? Do you always think this way about this kind of thing, the kind of situation that was happening? How were your thoughts or your emotions keeping you stuck? What critical inner voice was telling you how wrong you were? Or maybe that you don't have a right to feel this way. Or maybe that you are bad for thinking or feeling in the way you are. Just allow yourself to view the situation, letting your awareness be just as it is as you observe from this distance. Looking back to the situation. There's nothing that needs to be fixed. We're just observing. Allowing yourself to be with what is as we investigate. Is it okay for this awareness to be here in this moment? It may feel difficult, but I invite you to separate out difficulty from feeling like it's okay. And if you can allow it to be here, you're building capacity for being able to process it and be with it in a different way. Is it okay for this awareness and these feelings to be here in this moment? For some, it's important to internally say, yes, it's okay. Or to remind yourself that you can be with it. If that's the case for you, let yourself give that message internally. And in this place of allowing, investigate a little more. Leaning into the situation with natural curiosity and kindness. Curiosity is an important part of this, especially when it replaces judgment that we have about ourselves. Becoming curious is an act of compassion, an act of understanding, whereas judging is the opposite. So, what were you believing in this moment? What most needed your attention? What did this vulnerable place need from you? What may be coming up for you now? And what do you need in this moment? At the time, you may have felt many things. You may have felt wounded or frightened. Could a message of assurance, of support, have been helpful? Maybe of forgiveness or of compassion or love. So, as we step into the idea of nurturing, it can be helpful to say things like, I'm sorry, and I'm here for you now. It can be helpful maybe to say, I'm listening, or I believe in us, or maybe that you trust in the goodness. If it feels comfortable for you, part of the nurturing can be placing a hand over the heart and just that connection to ourselves, giving that direct tactile support can be just what we need for nurturing that raw place inside of us that we've looked at now. And if it's hard for you in this remembered space to bring up compassion for yourself, maybe you can see a family member, a religious figure, your dog, being able to send you those words of compassion. As much as you can, let yourself take in the sentiments of love and compassion. In the same way as you've been remembering this experience, allow the words of comfort to settle into your body. Just take note of what changes. Even these tough feelings only last for a little bit. To stay with this for another couple minutes, leaning into what you're feeling in this moment, leaning into what may have changed from when we started to now. And when you're ready, let your awareness shift back to the room. I want to stay on just a few more minutes to bring a little distinction between what we just did and how you can use this in your life. So, as we go through the idea of catching ourselves in the swirl of whatever's happening, a memory or a situation or whatever it is, where we find ourselves whirling and swirling, just pausing and saying, what's going on? And being able to recognize and name what might be happening. Oh, that's right. Every time I come to the grocery store, I get caught up in feeling frustrated with people here or feeling overwhelmed by the prices that have changed and how much things cost. And once you recognize and name, that can be an important part as well. Naming what you're feeling. Get the sense of how much you can allow it to be there. Now, this is a part that takes a little bit of practice because we're not always used to allowing, we're used to pushing it away a lot of times, a lot of us. It's very human for us to push things away. So when we let it stay, we allow it to be there, it's like a revolutionary act. Investigating can happen as much as it can. For instance, if you're at the grocery store, you can't do a very long practice, but investigate what might be happening. Oh, maybe I haven't eaten, or maybe you're tired, or of the thousands of other things it could be. What's going on for you in that moment? And then bringing that nurturing back to you, even if it's the sentiment that you're doing the best you can, that's still bringing nurturing to yourself in a way that we often don't do in our humanness. Judgment is often what we do. I should be doing this different. I shouldn't be so frustrated. There's no reason to be frustrated. Sure, there is, because it's what's happening. So that little sentiment of nurturing, that little sentiment of shifting judgment into something that's even the ittiest bit of compassion will change our experience. So you can use rain in the way that we just did, or you can use it as we just went through. How do you apply it into a situation like going to the grocery store? And the more you're able to use rain and be present with what's happening, be aware of what's happening, the more you have the opportunity to shift and to be different, whether that's turning toward compassion instead of judgment. It opens us up in a different way. It gives us space to be with instead of pushing away from our feelings. So I hope that helps. I hope you can take rain and apply it in your life, whether it's through the meditation or using it out in the world. And I wish you all that you need in this practice.